So now that we're back, let's take a quick look at some of the other different things you can do um, in your ribbons. Okay, so these ribbons are what I'm going to call at the top. Now you'll notice that you have the project ribbon. So the project ribbon is where you can save things, open things. If you have your licenses, this is where this goes. Now, assuming that you are in an enterprise system and you're not the administrator, which most of you won't be at any point in time, you shouldn't need to worry about these. Most of your things should be already done by whoever your portal manager or your enterprise manager is. So this should not matter to you, but this is where you can open new projects, open old projects, save your current project as well, right? So that's what the project ribbon is. The map ribbon is mostly going to deal with the things that you see in the map, and it's not really going to do anything particularly crazy, right? So this is just going to tell you, right, you can add data. If you want to draw things, you can add a graphics layer, and you can start playing around with some of that stuff. I'm not going to deal with that right this second, but it exists. The base map is something that you can change, right? So right now we have this world topographic map of World Hillshade. That's the basic one. If you have a custom map, so let's say you're doing something for history, you can add your own in. But they also have a variety of other ones that might just look better for whatever data you happen to be interested in. For me personally, I have a tendency of using the dark gray canvas or the streets at night. Most of the time, I deal with data in presentations, and so having this dark background just makes that data pop out a little bit more, particularly if I'm building an online interface. Not super necessary, but it is an option to change that out. Now, if you have, you'll notice in this case that you do have labels. Some of them have labels, some of them have them integrated, and some of them have them separate. So for example, I believe it is the human geography map actually has a bunch of different data, including different layers that draw on top. So it has the base geography, human geography layer, but then it also has this detail one, which is going to give you all of the small details. And then it has this labels one. And so the labels are going to draw on top of everything else. So if you don't want these labels to show, you can just turn off that layer. Same thing if you don't want this very detailed extent to show, you don't need it either. So let's say you just wanted, this kind of grayish or this gray white background to show the different countries, you can just do that. You don't need this, but it is an option, and and it will be based on whatever is going to look best. So that's going to be your base maps, right? Now, this selection is where you can start working within your vector data, and we'll talk about this more, but you can select things in your map. So you can choose things in your map. Anything that is selected will turn this bright blue. You can select by attributes, which is going to be in your attribute table. You can select by location, so using two different sets of layers, and then you can also clear your selection. So this is just a reminder, whenever you are doing any sort of work or operation or thing that is using your data and you have some of it selected, it's only going to act on that data. So if I just have this set of 1 point selected, it's not going to work on anything else. It's just going to extract those points and do whatever the operation is. So let's say I was doing some sort of kernel density map, for example, and I just had those points selected, it would only act on those points. So it's a very useful way to reduce the amount of information that you are using, but it is only going to act on those things. If you only have one thing selected and you forget, then whatever you happen to be working on will only do it to that 1 point. So it can be a bit of a problem, but that is what it is. Measure is going to be if you want to see what distance there are between different things. This is going to show you which variety, right? So this is in the map world. This is on the ground, the geodesic one. If you have a different datum, you can use the elliptical one. What sort of, if you're in the States, maybe you're doing miles or feet. If you're everywhere else, maybe you're doing metric. This is going to show you that. Now, in this tool, you have both the segment, the path, and the total. Now, in theory, your path and your sum should be more or less the same, but this segment is going to show each individual line that I drew, right? So I drew this line from Hattiesburg to Gulfport, it's 111. Then I drew one out here, that's another 102, 136 up here, 72 up here, and then depending on where I draw this out, you can see at the bottom where that's going to. So that's just showing you an on-the-fly metric. It doesn't really do anything outside of that. You can do a coordinate conversion. So this is going to, if you've got degrees, minutes, seconds, and you want to throw it into UTM, you can do that here. And then you also have this labeling, right? This labeling is not going to be the most common one you'll use. Oftentimes you'll do the labeling actually in your layer, but it is a place that you can add that. And then download map is going to turn it into a mapx file or one that you can use in ArcGIS, not the online version, but the original ArcMap. Okay, so this is what this map layer is going to look like. Now, each of these have their own features. So in general, insert is going to give you things that you can add, right? So you can add a new map. This is going to actually create a new map that you can work in with new data, things like that. This new layout is going to give you, if you're trying to print a map, it's going to give you options to do that. This new report is going to, if you have to summarize things. New notebook is going to be if you need to do code. New toolbox, if you have a new tool or model that you're building, you can import them in this section. New connections, right? So this is going to be if you want a geodatabase or a folder added. Don't mistake this though in the insert. Don't mistake add connections or add folder for add data. This is not what's going to happen. If I add a folder, it's going to show up in that sidebar over here, but it's not going to add any data. So you'll notice that this folder now shows up on the catalog pane. And so if there's data in here that I want, I can get it. But I can't directly add the data to my map without first, through this particular tool. Right. And then you have different styles that you can add, different types of items you can add to your favorite section if there's things that you commonly use. So this insert is going to be to add things into Arc as a program, not into your map specifically. So if you want to add it into your map specifically, it's under maps. If you want to add it into Arc as a whole, it's going to be in this insert. Analysis is where you're going to find all of your tools, right? So this is where you can find your history. If you're in Python or you want to do model building, if you're more advanced, you should probably know where this is. Tools are going to pull up the toolbox. We'll deal with more with these in a second. Common tools are in this section here. So there's a whole list of them that are already paired out. So this is a thing. If you have access to Portal and certain analysis features in Portal, these might still work. Most of the time, they'll just gray out though. If there's nothing in there, this is very common. And then you also have this section over here if you want to do very particular types of things, right? So this raster functions is going to pull up raster functions specifically. Network analysis is going to pull up network analysis specifically. Exploratory 3D analysis is going to pull up 3D features. Visibility is going to also do some 3D stuff. And these are kind of built-in secondary models that already exist in Arc. So these have been built up over the years. If they are applicable to you, then this is where you find them. If they're not applicable to you, then you don't really need to worry about it. View is where you find all of the things that you see here, right? So if, let's say, as commonly happens, you accidentally X out of this stuff and you want to go find it again, right? Then this is where you can do this in the view button, right? So this catalog pane is going to bring back up the catalog, and the contents page is going to bring up the contents. Geoprocessing is going to bring back your geoprocessing. If you've got anything going on for your workflow or your Python, you can bring those back here too. If you have any other links, and then also if you're trying to convert between 2D and 3D, these are all places you can do this. The other thing you can find in here that's common for that might be of interest in common is this animations button. This I'll get into far later, but this is one of the places where you can create essentially a video or an animation or an interactive feature within your map. Very picky, but this is under the view file as well. Edit is where you're going to be able to work within any of your data. We'll talk more about that later, but this is if you're trying to modify your data on the fly. Imagery is if you happen to have anything like Landsat or drones or sonar or LiDAR, this is where you're going to find some raster stuff. And then share is where you're going to be able to export your map. It's where you're going to be able to save it as different things, where you can upload it to the web if you want to, where you can create deep learning models or create different packages to then share with other people as well. So this share is going to be much like the share button on any other device you have, right? So if you want to share it to PDF, if you want to share it with your friends, if you want to share it online, this is the same share as there is anywhere else. And so those are going to be the major ribbons